Good afternoon and welcome back to Borderlines, the only show that takes you beyond borders. In just the last 2 weeks, over 200 Nigerians have been killed in terrorist and armed attacks across different parts of the country. Entire communities are devastated, lives lost, and yet another reminder of the deep cracks in Nigeria's security architecture. In October last year, President Trump declared Nigeria a country of particular concern, CPC. He accused Nigeria of Christian genocide. On Christmas Day, Christmas Day stroke the next day, he bombed, or rather, they struck Sokoto. Since then, we've also seen an escalation of the terrorism attacks, in particular towards the south. Now, we have with us today the man that can unpack it all for us. But before I go there, something interesting happened this week. The United States released what they call, and I'm going to read it exactly as they say, this act may be cited as the Nigeria Religious Freedom and Accountability Act of 2026. This act wasn't done in a National Assembly. It wasn't done by the House of Reps in Nigeria. This is a bipartisan act in the United States. Several things are said in there. There are several points, but pointedly is the name Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso, who is could be a presidential candidate. He was a former presidential candidate. So to help us unpack all that's going on and much, much more is Dr. Kabiru Adamu, who is the managing director of Beacon Consulting Limited. He's a security, risk management and intelligence expert, which is also what his organization does. But more importantly, his experience, his thoughts, his analysis is widely sought across the globe, including on different international media organizations. He was one of the guests we had when we did the town hall on the issues of security or insecurity in Nigeria. Dr. Kabiru Adamu, welcome again to Borderlines. It's an absolute honor to have you.
The honor is mine. I'm delighted to be back here. Unfortunately, under very bizarre circumstances, but irrespective, I'm delighted to be here. Thank you.
I think bizarre is an excellent way of putting it, because here we are right now. So we're expecting, or at least 200 troops, American troops are coming to Nigeria, apparently under advisory and support, capacity. Indeed, there is a drone base or a drone refueling base in Nigeria. And we're seeing, all of this is all very gently inserted, quietly, almost as a footnote. There's no noise, there's no announcement, there's no really an official announcement from the government. What exactly is going on?
And I think that's the most relevant issue here. Nobody should even doubt about the United States military capabilities. It has proven that severally. Arguably, it is the most advanced military capability in the world. And since we do have a security challenge, and again, we're not in doubt about that, almost on a daily basis, we encounter different security incidents across the federation. Actually, I doubt if there are any states that does not record this incident. So we do need foreign military support, but the way and manner this is going is generating significant concern for different components within Nigeria, for the simple reason that there hasn't been transparency till date. The Nigerian state government rather has not come out openly to indicate to Nigerians what defense agreement it has entered into with the United States. We know that there were ISR flights, that's intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance flights by the United States over Nigeria. And we also know from our understanding of how these ISR flights are conducted that they do generate intelligence of all sorts, operational, tactical, and strategic intelligence, including of telephone conversations by individuals that we expect the confidentiality of their information should be respected, including the president, as an example. That's number one. Number two is the bomb attack that occurred on December 25th. Clearly, there was some form of agreement between the two countries that allowed that bomb attack. And I think it's important for the listener to understand the significance of what happened. It is the first time in Nigeria's history as an independent country that a foreign power would come into Nigeria and carry out a bombing attack. It didn't happen during the Civil War. There were offers by different countries, but because our leaders then respected Nigeria's sovereignty and understood the significance of ensuring sovereignty, they did not allow that to happen. And it's important for the listener, especially the young ones among us, to contextualize that period. It was a period when we didn't even have an air force. And so the significance of foreign support to allow some form of air superiority would have tilted the warfare in favor of whichever side allowed it. But the Nigerian state, in spite of that, refused the offer by different countries. Instead, what we did was to quickly buy aircraft, jets, and then got pilots from, I think it was Egypt, that now came to fly. So allowing that tactical superiority, but then taking ownership of it. In this instance, it was a foreign partner, quote unquote, that came into Nigerian territory, bombed locations within Nigeria, and 2 months down the road, there hasn't been an official statement to indicate whether that incident was successful or not, or in fact, to even clarify what exactly happened in terms of the cost of that expedition by experts, that experts, including myself, have judged as a failure. 4 of those bombs, each of which cost about $2 million US, 4 of them were retrieved intact. They did not detonate. And we were told by the Minister of Information that 16 of such bombs were expended. So if you multiply 2 by 16, you're talking of $32 million US. Now, we also know that it was one of the destroyers that was deployed. Now, we don't know the cost of the deployment of that destroyer. We also told that a drone was used in some components of the attack, and it's likely that drone emanated from neighboring Ghana. Now, the airspace that was circumvented, was there approval from Nigeria? So all of these are things that I think there should have been clarity by now from the Nigerian government to say this is the agreement that we arrived at, and this is what the agreement entails. And of course, if there are other aspects of the agreement, I mean, just to give you a sense of what I mean, between that December and this February, we've seen news report suggesting that certain Nigerian prisoners would be deported back that are in the US will be deported to Nigeria. I think the first batch was 79, and then another batch about 33 is also being discussed at the moment. Is that part of an overarching agreement? What are the contents of that agreement? So these are the kind of I think circumstances that kind of pervade our mind at the moment regarding that. But I think the summary of what I'm saying is that the superiority of the United States military is not in doubt. The need for international support in Nigeria is also not in doubt, especially if we contextualize the various institutional and structural challenges that are facing not just our military, but the other components of our security forces. To put this in context, at the moment, the Nigerian government, the Tinubu administration, has one of its policy imperatives to increase the local production of military equipment by 40% in 2027. So which means our current production capacity, local production capacity is less than 40%. Actually, it's about 5%. So the policy imperative is to take it up to 40% by 2027. So if you deconstruct that, you would see how we need our international partners to support us, not just in the provision of this equipment, but for increasing our local capacity for this equipment.
Thank you so much. You said something which, like you said, I hope everybody heard you clearly, especially the young people. Christmas Day, the United States striking in Sokoto was the first time a foreign country had sent bombs. Let's not call it anything more than it is. It is bombs to the Nigerian soil, claiming to be supporting Nigeria. What does that say about the current management of Nigeria's insecurity issues, especially by this administration? Because if this is the first time, we must put this administration under the spotlight. Who knew what, when, and who gave approval? And indeed, if they don't know, shouldn't they know?
Well, they've told us that they know. There were statements by the Minister of Defense, Minister of Information, where, including the Chief of Defense Staff, where they admitted to having knowledge of the U.S. Military expedition. They also indicated that the intelligence, and for me this is even more significant than any other thing, they indicated in those statements that the intelligence that was used to determine the targets was provided by Nigeria. And this was also corroborated by the United States. So the question now arose, if the intelligence was shared by Nigeria, why wasn't Bello Turji's base taken out? Why wasn't the jihadist bases in Timbuktu Triangle, in the Lake Chad Basin, in Mandara Mountains, in Sambisa Forest? Why were they not taken out? How about the bandit bases in Katsina and in Zamfara? Why were they not taken out? Why was an innocent location in Sokoto, in Jabu, where, as you know, my company monitors this development? We never, since we've been keeping our database, record any incident in Jabu, in Sokoto State. The bombs fell in about 4 locations. It was only in one location, which is in Tangada, that there has been a record of occurrences of terrorist attack, and that's the Lakurawas. But even there, we could not verify that the Lakurawas were specifically targeted and that the bases were destroyed. So if at all intelligence was shared, why was the intelligence not targeting the core areas where we know these bandits to occur? Bello Turji's location is known. Bello Turji's assets, his bases are known. And several others, Dogo Gide, name them. I can reel out almost about 30 names of these bandit commanders in the Northwest, in the North Central. None of them was targeted. And so it begs the question, what really happened on December 25th? And I think it's imperative for that to be deconstructed, especially if it turns out that we had to pay for that expedition. And if I know Trump very well, he's not going to, it's not Father Christmas for him. That cost would be shifted to Nigeria one way or the other. So it's absolutely important that we deconstruct this. It's absolutely important that there is transparency and clarity with regards to what exactly happened and what we should expect in the coming days. That incident is just one out of several other occurrences that are happening. I think should, if we look at the delegation that went to the United States I think it was in December 2025, the Nigerian delegation that was headed by the National Security Advisor, it included the Attorney General of the Federation. Now, is it possible that an agreement was signed with the United States during that visit? If something like that happened, I think it's only fair that the government makes it public. Let's know what was agreed to, and more importantly, let's expect. And I hope the National Assembly would also add its voice to this so that questions are asked in the same manner that we're seeing congressional hearing in the United States regarding all of this development. I think we should have the same here in Nigeria so that there is some form of openness with regards to what is going on, what Nigeria has signed, what Nigeria is going to allow. It's perhaps in the course of our conversation, we'll talk about the bill that you referred to.
Absolutely.
2 bills actually that are significant and of importance. and that risk analysts like myself are already beginning to worry that Nigeria could become the next proxy war location between the United States and China. If a bill is alleging that Chinese construction.
Well, let me stop you there. Let me read it, because it's all in there, right? So it's called, and I'd also like you to answer why Bello Turji and all the others, indeed, even somebody like Sheikh Gumi, who is constantly, accused, alleged, etc., are not mentioned in this document that was released this week. So the bill says this act, and please, this is United States, not Nigeria, as I said. The act may be cited as the Nigeria Religious Freedom and Accountability Act of 2025. It goes on to state, it gives a synopsis of the background of how we got to where we are today. It only mentions Christians. And it says minority religions. It doesn't mention Muslims, albeit the fact that we know that the two majority religion in Nigeria is Christian and Muslim. Number one, it goes on to name or to state certain organizations and individuals, but the only individual that I can see in here, Kabiru, you can correct me if I'm wrong, the only individual I can see is Rabiu Kwankwaso, but they have Macban, they have Kautauri, I think they're called, some other group they call Fulani Militia. But more importantly, what I saw in this bill, Dr. Kabiru, if you can help us out, is almost an instruction to Nigeria to say, this is what you're going to do. These are the rules and regulations you will abide to. And these are the objectives we expect from you, and we will be monitoring you henceforth. Indeed, they also mention about the blasphemy law. Break it down for us. Oh, and by the way, sorry, the Chinese, it says about something about, I'm trying to get to it, it's very long, something about Chinese mining in Nigeria. How is all of this business of the United States? Is Nigeria still a sovereign country?
And I think this is the crux of the matter. Yes, we must also commend the administration, the Bola Tinubu administration, for de-escalating the tension that was generated after President Trump threatened to come guns a-blazing into Nigeria. They have,
but at what expense, though? At what expense?
Exactly. And I think this should be the question: at what expense? What did they give away in order to de-escalate the tension? I did refer to the fact that the Attorney General of the Federation was part of that delegation, and it's very likely that an agreement could have been signed between the two countries. And there is also a joint working group between the two countries that is chaired by the National Security Advisor at the moment. And that joint working group has sat already, and we've seen the conversations that went on between the two sides. So clearly, after de-escalating the tension, it's now time for the United States to reap from that outcome, and we're seeing elements of that reaping. This bill, irrespective of what way it goes, it's clearly an attempt to operationalize the categorization of Nigeria as a country of particular concern. But I think the consequence, however, is that it would lead to further polarization of the Nigerian society. Those names mentioned there and the indication, whether advertently or inadvertently, that there are only Fulani militias. And I say this with all sense of responsibility. The only group mentioned there is Fulani militias. And nobody is denying that there are Fulani militias. There are Fulani militias. But for the fair-minded person who understands the security dynamics in Nigeria knows that there are also other ethnic militias. I can categorically say that there is no ethnicity in Nigeria that does not have a militia one way or the other. And this is even more so as you move into the north central and northwest and not east part of the country. Look at what is going on in Benue and Taraba State at the moment. The fight between Tiv and Jukun militias. Are Fulani involved in that? No. If you also go down to Plateau State, almost all the ethnic groups have one or the other form of militias. If you go down to Northwest, Hausas have their militias, Fulani have their militias. So to single out one quote-unquote militia, I think it's wrong. And that's not in any way saying that the criminal acts by these militias should be condoned. All we're saying is that if what is bad is bad. If it's bad for the Fulani, then it should also be bad for the other ethnic groups. In other words, if the intention is to stop this carnage that we're seeing in Nigeria, then Nigerian laws should be recognized every time. And I think it's instructive to remind ourselves that we do have several laws that attempt to deal with. So the Weapons Act, as an example, it's very clear. No ethnicity, no individual is allowed to own weapons, irrespective of his identity, except if there is a license issued to own that weapon. So if the United States was sincere in this approach, one of the things it should do is to strengthen Nigerians' capacity to enforce that Weapons Act. In other words, let the Nigerian state be able to go after all those who have arms, weapons, irrespective of their identity or ethnic groups, but not to single out one particular ethnic group and go after them. And then, of course, we can talk about the individual mentioned there with Konkosu. The conversation at the moment, and anyone who picks the newspapers between yesterday and today would see how the interpretation has been given on political connotation. In other words, he's being targeted because of his political stance and not necessarily because he's actually considered a person of interest in terms of terrorism sponsorship. That will not augur well for Nigeria's political future, in the sense that if individuals feel they're being targeted because they do not belong to the ruling party, then of course the consequences would be really unfortunate for our democracy. Now, having said all of this, the United States is at liberty to do whatever it wants. It's a sovereign country, and it can decide to, as it did, categorize Nigeria, but it is also Nigeria's responsibility to stand up for its own sovereignty. In other words, the Nigerian state should speak up where there is a very clear derogation of our laws. In this instance, we do have a Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act. The Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act outlines who terrorists are in Nigeria, who terrorist sponsors are in Nigeria. And for the listener, it's very instructive to know that at the moment we have about 135 names that are contained in the sanctions list as terrorist sponsors. That name, Musa Konkoso, is not there in that list. It's also very instructive to remember that law provides for how a terrorist individual or group or organization can be categorized as terror, whether administratively or operationally. Now, if we allow a foreign country to, out of its whims and the whims and caprices of two congressmen, to now list certain individuals and organizations as terrorists, we are, by all intents and purposes, letting go of our sovereignty and allowing a foreign power, although that foreign power is the greatest military power in the world, probably the strongest economy in the world, it does not have that power to simply wake up one day and categorize an individual as terroristic. I'm hoping that what would happen is that the Nigerian state will take up that responsibility and address this issue frontally by inviting perhaps, it's a conversation. There is already a working group. That working group can request from the US government evidence that says this individual or these groups are terroristic. At the moment, the TPPA I cited has 6 groups that it recognizes as terroristic. I can quickly list them out.
Please do.
the Jamaat al-Ahl Sunnah lil Dawati wal Jihad, otherwise called Boko Haram, the Islamic in West Africa province, Ansaru, the Lakurawas, the Yembindiga, the Yembanga group that were categorized by the Buhari administration, and then the indigenous people of Biafra, six of them. Now, if the United States was a true ally, like it says it is to pick from these six and continue or carry out whatever actions. It didn't. It went out of those six without recognition for our laws, and then decided to include individuals and associations. If we pick McBan as an example, Meeti Allah Cattle Breeders Association, it's a lawfully registered organization. It was registered, I think about, I'm not sure of the years it's registered, but I know it is registered with the Corporate Affairs Commission. Its members are law-abiding citizens who pay their taxes and all of that. Now, that's not to say that perhaps there may be individuals associated with the group that are carrying out criminal activities, but that is in no way representing the objective of the group. And where the organization becomes aware of it, it uses its internal mechanisms to penalize them, as it were. So to now, use the blanket phrase of including that organization, I don't think it would help whatever it is that we want from that particular group in terms of our counterterrorism strategy. So these are some of the concerns associated with that bill. The summary of what I'm saying is that it does not recognize Nigerian law. It is unilateral, and it is totally against the objectives for the creation of the bilateral working group between Nigeria and the United States. And I'm hoping that the chairman of that group, that working group on the Nigerian side, that's the National Security Advisor, will take this seriously in the next meeting that they are going to have with the United States. If allies are working together, and in this case, this is what we're told. It's an alliance between two countries that want to achieve the same objective, then there should be a recognition of the laws of both countries. The same way Nigeria should recognize the United States law, then the United States should also recognize Nigerian law. And before I conclude, I think it's important to emphasize that this is in no way saying that we should not support any effort by the United States to address terrorism or any criminality, violent criminality in Nigeria. However, what we're saying is that it should not be done unilaterally. Since there is a working group, it should be done together and with the recognition of existing Nigerian laws. If there is a need to amend or change those laws, then the United States should work with Nigeria to amend and change those laws, and not to sit unilaterally and do, an attempt to do what is being done in the bill that we're discussing.
Thank you so much, and that was quite expansive. But here's the thing. Having interviewed MACBAN, the chairman of MACBAN, Baba Ingelsama, I had to try and remember his name and to pronounce it properly. I know that I followed up with him. I followed the organization when the Americans came last year. And he said they also met with the Americans. And they presented their evidence. They presented what was happening to, their members. So it's surprising to now find them on the list. Indeed, he said he was quite confident that they've been able to put, their case across to say, look, this thing is happening to all of us. It also happens to our members. So I think they're quite surprised that they're on the list. And indeed, it was surprising for me to find them on the list. But I'm yet to have him into the studio to talk to him about it. The other thing that other people are saying, though, is if the United States can continue to play the big brother, designating countries as they feel like, well, given that 3 million, not one, not two, 3 million documents about Jeffrey Epstein, possibly the world's largest pedophile ring, has just been released, should Nigeria then be designating the United States CPC of pedophilia? In order for people to be safe, we've got to ask the question, because again, it's about sovereignty. Where does sovereignty end and where does it begin? If the United States is able to impose a law on a sovereign country such as Nigeria, and they are sending back, what did you say? 70 odd Nigerian prisoners.
79, and then an additional, I think, 33 or thereabout.
Well, then shouldn't we be worried about the children of Nigerian descendants who may be under issue in possibly the world's, CPC pedophile ring? Most of them were Americans, by the way.
Yeah, I don't want to go into that conversation. It's so dirty that, frankly, I don't want to be. I don't even want to comment on it. I've taken the last few weeks to read, study what is going on, and I'm shocked at the silence of conspiracy that seems to be going on with the United States. What has happened, I think, it beguiles one's understanding of how a country that preaches to be the world's greatest democracy can now allow the type of silence that we're seeing with regards to how the matter is being handled. The principal actor is dead, but then he's left behind him, I think, enough evidence to allow for the state and law enforcement to all we're seeing, perhaps because he's super rich and the people that he associated with are also super rich. It's a kind of conspiracy of silence. But having said that, I think what is important for us is to remind the Nigerian state, as well as the listener, that our foreign policy objectives or imperatives is guided by what the Tinubu administration calls strategic autonomy and the 4D doctrine. Strategic autonomy prioritizes our national interest on non-alignment and active value-driven engagement. It shifts our former foreign policy objectives from the traditional Afrocentrism to a more dynamic multipolar approach. And the objective is to boost our economic growth and global influence. Now, with all of that, it means, for instance, we're at liberty to choose any partner that would advance our national interest. And if at the moment we've chosen the United States, then how will that tie into the 4Ds? And for the benefit of the listener, the 4Ds are one, demography, which speaks about Nigeria's population size and status, and then our development imperatives as well as our diaspora. How do we tie in the strategic autonomy to support our objectives with regards to these 4Ds? At the moment, our relationship with the United States supporting that. I think this is something I would allow the listener to answer himself or herself. Should we look for other partners to support us in that regard, since what we're proposing is strategic autonomy? I think this is important. The moral issues around the Jeffrey Epstein files, I think this is something for discussion for another time.
Indeed. Well, no, I was just juxtaposing, because if Nigeria can be alleged to be, and the United States feels it has the right to label Nigeria as it feels, well, there is evidence all over the world now, and nobody has been prosecuted in the United States. It's only the Brits that are acting to it. Indeed, there were protests in India against the fact that their president was mentioned in the list. Well, nothing has happened in the same United States that seems to appoint itself the policeman of the world and impose their laws on a sovereign country such as ours. But alas, we'll leave that to our First Lady, who was quite excited that President Trump remembered her name. Anyway, let's go back to...
I think the $9 million that was paid to the lobby firm helped in that regard, maybe probably to secure a seat for her, and then to also remind President Trump that she was in the among the attendees. Of course, $9 million is a lot of money, and I'm sure it can get you a ticket to any event.
Well, if Nigeria Info paid $9 million for anybody to recognize me, they had better be recognizing my favorite colors, my favorite food, which Nigeria food. In fact, my favorite restaurant. They had better be recognizing including how many gray hairs I have. But hey, that's just me.
Hence, my reminder that what we pinned our foreign policy objectives on is strategic autonomy and the 4Ds, and not necessarily individuals that are representing us. I think there is a misappropriation of priorities at this point in time, and perhaps there is a need to constantly remind us that our interest should not be on individuals, but our national objectives.
Let's talk about Chinese. Oh, we're always running out of time. I hate this. Right. So let's talk about this alleged Chinese mining and militia funding. I'm going to bring up a point now, which I only learned this week. I'm sure you already knew about it. Whilst I was watching the Pambondi's presentation to the United States Congress, the reps, I think it was, there was a mention of Lafarge, the French cement company, and apparently they were accused of working with ISIS in Syria in 2002. Although Lafarge, so they pleaded guilty in the United States. They provided material support to ISIS and other terrorist groups. They agreed to pay 778 million fine. However, the allegation, which was in 2013 and 2014, Lafarge made the payment, but I've said, we don't support terrorism. Now, when we look at this Chinese mining and militia funding in the same bill that we spoke about, from your expertise, how credible are these claims and how dangerous is it when foreign actors start framing Nigeria's internal security, not just in ethnic terms, but in terms of who Nigeria does business with?
And I think the danger is to allow Nigeria become the location for a proxy war between the two greatest economic powers in the world. China, as you are aware, has already responded and denied categorically that as a state, it is not supporting terrorism. It has also indicated in very emphatic terms that its citizens that come to Nigeria are encouraged and supported by the Chinese state to comply and abide by Nigerian laws. But having said that, the reality is that Chinese does a lot of excavation across Nigeria, and including in the security challenged locations. If you go to Zamfara State as an example, you'll be surprised to see the Chinese involved in mining. And I'm sure you would also be surprised that it's not on record that at any point in time, any Chinese has been abducted by the bandits. It would also surprise you that some of the key players, both political and of economic interest, who we know control these mining sites, are very close to the Chinese. Now, that's not in any way, given what I do and my background, for you to make any allegations, you have to have enough facts. Now, these are circumstantial evidence. They are not facts that would show clearly the Chinese are involved. But the point that I want to bring out is the onus is on the state to ensure compliance to regulatory requirements, to ensure that its minerals are extracted lawfully and that benefits from that extraction. Where there are lapses, the responsibility is not that of the United States to make such spurious allegations. It is the responsibility of the Nigerian state to strengthen regulatory capacity to ensure that anyone who mines any mineral in Nigeria is doing so legally. Every time I speak about this, it reminds me of The Untouchables. Anyone who has watched that movie and remembers the conspiracies involved and how certain individuals could not be prosecuted because of their association with influence makers within the state, is the same thing we're seeing with mineral extraction in Nigeria. There are certain individuals that on a daily basis benefit from these extracted minerals. Some of them are locals, others are internationals, and it cuts across a very huge spectrum of individuals. And I think it's time that the Nigerian state wakes up to its responsibility to stop this, because there is a nexus. I'm not oblivious of this. There's a nexus between the criminality that is going on, violent criminality, and then the extraction of minerals in several parts of Nigeria, in the northwest, in the north central. Why Kwara is being bedeviled at the moment is probably because of this issue. And so the earlier we put a stop to this and have control over our minerals, the better for all of us. If we allow this to continue and it degenerates into a tough war, because let nobody be deceived, the United States is also interested in extracting this mineral. It's not doing this because of the interest of the Chinese or the Nigerians. It is doing this because it wants to also have an inroad. It's a case of catch up. They did not come at the time that they should have come. The Chinese are ahead of them. So how do they get it out? And then they come in. It's as simple as that. A week ago, the United States had a meeting that the State Department had a meeting with 40 countries. That meeting was very clear. How do we get your minerals? The Chinese are already involved. How do we, have access to your minerals, especially rare earth minerals that would decide the next phase of our industrialization and the development, especially economic development. Nigeria needs to wake up to this reality and not allow itself to be a location of proxy, conflict between these two superpowers. Of course, the Chinese are already embedded here. You just need Nasarawa State. We know that the Americans attempted to sign that contract, but the offer that the China made was more lucrative. So the Nasarawa State government and the federal government went with that. And it's not going to be easy to get the Chinese out. Whatever the Americans do, the fact that we already have an agreement in place with them, that's where the agreement exists. I'm not in any way oblivious of the fact that there are locations where these things are done illegally, but there are also locations where these agreements have been formalized and the Chinese are already implementing that agreement. So it's not going to be kids' play to, as it were, get them out. Especially since we've collected loans from them, and those loans have certain implications if we decide to renege on those agreements. So we should be very careful. And I think it takes us back to our earlier conversation, our sovereignty. We should be guided by what are we doing that gives the impression that we've let go of our sovereignty.
Thank you. Indeed, the Chinese are calling back the loans now. That's the period for all of you to pay back. Okay, I'm going to open up the lines. One question, because I know you've all started calling, okay? Dr. Kabiru will answer your questions. I'm going to squeeze in as many as possible. We have no time remaining. I have the first one on WhatsApp. Good evening, Cecilia. My name is Tara from Lekki. Your guest just said that 4 bombs were sent from the Gulf of Guinea and not exploded. Not exploded yet. I've listened and watched Mr. Donald Trump say that the bombs exploded on Christmas Day, left the terrorists were destroyed. So since the bombs no work, I don't know, you go from English to broken. No work, we go pay for it now, Abi. So who is can you just write in one language? I mean, really? Oh gosh, Jesus. No work, for it now. Who is telling the truth? Now, is it your guest said there that there are you really need to rewrite this. I refuse to have to force myself to read what is clearly terrible grammar. Right, I'm coming to your calls. Hello.
Yeah, this is good evening once more.
Good evening, quickly.
Yeah. Nigeria last 2 years drove American base out of their territory. Now, does it not mean that they have found a way to come back to a place very close to Nigeria by coming back to Nigeria now, stylishly?
Thank you.
What does that say to Nigeria frosty relationship with Nigeria? Given the background that Nigeria...
but you see, the problem with Titilokpa, you have so much knowledge. You want to ask 1,000 questions in one. What is your question? One.
It's the same question. You are just interjecting me to destabilize
Yeah, because it's going on too long.
No, it's not. It's the same question.
Okay, go ahead.
How does Nigeria see Nigeria now by allowing the American and the rest given the fact that they already are not happy with Nigeria, especially with our friendship with France, which of course brought about a problem with them in the first place.
Okay, thank you very much. Stay listening. What is our relationship with Niger, I think, is the question, and how do they view us now, given the problems we're having? Right, hello. Good evening, very quickly.
Going back by everything that has been happening in Nigeria, religious extremism and so on, I've asked this kind of question on this show before, but to another guest. Has religion on us in Nigeria? Thank you.
Excellent question. Thank you. Did you hear that? Has religion become a burden? Right. Next question. Hello. Very quickly. Short, sharp, and succinct. We don't have the time. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Very quickly.
Hello. Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Sam from Moe.
Yes. Go ahead. Very quickly.
Okay. My question is this: is your guest aware that Magban and their members, they are inside various forests in Nigeria? IPOB are not staying in other people's forests. Is he aware?
Did he mention IPOB? Who mentioned IPOB?
Yes, he mentioned IPOB.
No, he mentioned that there are different...
Okay. Does he also aware that Magban claim responsibility for those that shot against the former Benue State governor?
Okay, thank you.
Autumn,
okay, thank
farm.
you. Thank you.
Is he aware of them?
Thank you. Right. So I think I'm gonna. Jeez. Hello, Kabiru. I'm coming to you in a second. Hello, very quickly.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Your question, please. We have no time.
We understand that we are a sovereign state, no problem. But because of our leaders have failed to nip terrorism in the bud, now you see the U.S. come here with their boots. My question to your guest this evening is: some have argued that mineral resources or no mineral resources, we just want the job done. Now, the mineral resources have not benefited the average Nigerian. We are crying about mineral resources. Is it that we should allow the terrorists to continue killing our people?
Okay, thank you. Right, those of you that are calling on WhatsApp, I can't answer your call. Just send a message. Right, Kabiru, you have what? 4 questions there? I don't even know. I can only give you 1 minute and a half because the lines have gone crazy. That's the problem you cause every time you come on this show. Look at you. Yes.
Well, let me start with the most controversial one, religion. The secular state, Section 10 of the 1999 Constitution states that in very clear terms. So constitutionally, we're a secular state. In practice, however, unfortunately, we allow religion to interfere with a lot of things. So I think we should just go back to what the Constitution says and try to limit interferences by religious practices within our governance and allow individuals to practice their religions in the manner that they want without the state being involved. Second question regarding our relationship with Niger. The relationship is fractured at the moment, not just with what the US is doing, but our relationship is with France. What happened after the coup in that country has not helped that relationship, and I don't think it's going to amend anytime soon, as long as that junta remains, in the government in Niger, and as long as we continue with our current foreign policy direction. If there is a change that kind of breaks the ice, then yes, we will see that. The last question,
Magban in the forests, and Magban admitting something to do with.
I think this is the crux of the matter. Magban is saying that it's an association, and that yes, there may be individuals that are members of the organization that are involved in criminal activities and not very different from other organizations, but it is not in any way sponsoring those criminal activities, and that anytime it becomes aware of those individuals, it would take the necessary action against them. The listener asked a question regarding the Magban taking ownership of attack the former governor of Benue State. I'm not representing Magban, and so perhaps he can direct that question to Magban. They are a registered organization. They have contact numbers. You can contact them and ask them that question.
When I have them on this show, he can ask them that question. Right. Let me try and squeeze in a couple more questions. Hello.
Yeah, good evening.
Very quickly, 30 seconds.
Yeah. Does the guest think that the president Tinubu's legal baggage in America, is contributing to the pressure he's under to make himself appear so nice before the president that is giving out so much to them.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. Is it possible? I can see you laughing. Let me squeeze in one more. Hello. I do love my callers. Hello.
Good evening.
Very
My
quickly.
name is Chuku from Bodo.
Go ahead. 30 seconds, Chuku. Go.
Okay. The Chinese have always been here. Now the Americans are here. Don't this make that proxy war inevitable? And what can we as a people do to avert this coming war?
Thank you very much. It's an important question because have we now been caught between the Chinese war for United States domination, war for domination? Secondly, do we have a compromised, I'm helping him to put it nicely, do we have a compromised president who feels under pressure to actually capitulate to whatever the Americans demand? I've put it nicely. I know he put it differently. But there you go. You have a minute. Stop calling.
All I know is that after what happened in Venezuela, I don't think there's any developing country that would say no to the Americans. The President Trump and his restructuring and redesignation of the former now the Department of War has shown clearly that his objective or his strategy is to use that department to achieve its objective. And so, none of us, including myself, would want to see President Tinubu in the manner that the Venezuelan president was, depicted. Now, however, what is important is that the government carries us along, and I think that's we're all asking for some form of transparency in what has been given to the Americans. Let's know that.
Okay.
The other thing that some others are discussing is 2027. Is the president so interested in 2027 that he's willing to do anything in order to allow him to achieve that objective in 2027? So these are all questions that have emerged. But like I said in the course of my conversation, we must commend the government for de-escalating the situation. But like you pointed out, at what cost? And I think this is what is important going forward. With regards to this proxy war,
30 seconds, yes.
Yeah, frankly, it is inevitable, but we just need to manage the consequences. We're already indebted to the Chinese to an alarming state, and we can't afford to anger them. We also can't afford to anger the Americans. So back to our strategic autonomy, I think this is the time for us to put on our thinking caps and see how we can manage these contending partners without allowing this situation to de-escalate to a point where a proxy conflict is going on in Nigeria at the moment.
Excellent. Dr. Kabiru Adamu, it is always an absolute pleasure, insightful. But I'm going to ask you something very quickly. Can I get you back in just to do a Q&A with our people? Because as you can see, this is what you cause. They'll now be abusing me later. You didn't pick up my call. Can I please book you for another time, like a 30-40 minutes Q&A? Because I know you do a quarterly report. We can use that to talk about it. Is that okay?
With all pleasure.
Thank you so much, sir. Beacon Security Limited. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful, wonderful weekend.
And you too. Have a great weekend ahead.
You too. Bye-bye. Right, that's the end of Borderlines, the only show that takes you beyond borders. We went to Libya. We came back to Nigeria. We stepped in the United States, possibly the CPC of pedophiles. I don't know. Don't say I said it. Go and look at the Epstein files. Until next week, goodbye.
99.3 Nigeria Info. We are more than just radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channel at Nigeria Info FM. Check us out on Facebook at Nigeria Info 99.3. Follow us on Twitter at Nigeria Info FM and on Instagram at Nigeria Info FM Lagos for live updates as it happens. 99.3 Nigeria Info. Let's talk.